I'm Sandy Andrew, your host of the Universal Learning Series radio show, where we discover the spiritual and scientific universe. Welcome. On today's edition, we will be discussing the topic of Can Astrology Predict Disasters? With Hassan Jaffer. According to astrologer Hassan Jaffer, the recent tsunami tragedy in Japan was predicted by him back in December of 2010. Can astrology predict disasters? Can we read the stars and prevent catastrophes and human suffering? Hassan Jaffer is an interpreter of the human mind, predestiny, and free will. Hassan combines the logic of his engineering background with his acute sensitivity to human nature to explain the complexities of human experiences through astrology. Hassan Jaffer expresses his love for the Creator and the human potential in every book he writes and in every report he makes for his clients. Hassan Jaffer has appeared on numerous radio and television shows including City TV, Tom Charington Show, Life Channel, Dini Petty Show, and CBC. Please visit Hassan Jaffer's website at astrotrends.net, astrotrends.net. And let's welcome Hassan Jaffer back to the Universal Learning Series radio show.
Hello, Sandy. Nice to speak to you also.
Thank you for joining us today, Hassan. Right?
I always enjoy your interviews.
Thank
You're
you.
an excellent host.
Thank you very much, Hassan. And you're an excellent astrologer, which I cannot explain, and that's why you're on here to explain what you talk about. So let's start up with a straight up serious question. The tragedy in Japan.
Yes.
Did you see this happening back in December 2010, Hassan?
Actually, in 2004, I wrote about it when I made the prediction about the Indonesian earthquake. I mean, the tsunami. I'd never heard about the tsunamis before that, and I'd said about 6 months before that as Uranus is moving into the sign of Pisces, this is once in 84 years, we'll have underwater earthquakes which will trigger off major tsunamis. And in December of 2004, we had that big tsunami. At that time, I also wrote in my newsletter also that this will continue to the last degrees of Pisces, when Uranus is in Pisces, and then it'll go into Aries, which is after fire and explosions and wars and bombs. And you wouldn't believe it that exactly on the 11th of March was the last day of Uranus being in the sign of Pisces. And the tsunami happened. The next day, there were explosions in nuclear technology, that nuclear reactor. And nuclear is also Uranus, and Aries is again the fire and explosions. My next prediction started then. It couldn't have been anywhere else but Japan. There had to be a huge tsunami and the nuclear reactor explosion right after that. Now, I didn't say Japan. I did feel it was the Pacific because I've only seen tsunamis in the Pacific. There's a phenomena I haven't seen anywhere else. Actually, it's only in the Pacific. And, of course, the whole part right from Vancouver to San Francisco, that is still, it's not finished completely now. But I don't think we'll have the major tsunamis anymore. And there are two completely different events happening. One of them is that there's like 8 planets trying to pull the Earth off its orbit. All these major T-squares in the sky. It's an astronomy phenomena. That's one aspect, how the solar flares are being affected by that. And this is not the 11-year cycle. I'll explain later on what a simple thing, the connection between the sun and the induced field of the Earth and how the planets affect this aspect. Nothing to do with the gravitational field, only the geomagnetism, and how some miracles of nature coincide with this aspect as well, and how even in birds' beaks, which I'll discuss a little later on. So on one side there's this astronomical phenomena. Now, the earthquakes, etc., are there, but now that if the tsunamis do not happen, then my interpretation of this would be definitely very accurate, because I'd said that Uranus is not in Pisces anymore, so we won't have those major tsunamis anymore. I mean, you might have little tsunamis, it's nothing though.
Right.
Even there was a 7.4 earthquake in Japan yesterday, the day before, And I'd mentioned on my website, I'm sorry, I don't see any tsunamis at all. And I think it was 1 meter long or something, just very simple one. Now that it's in Aries, on the positive side, we'll have amazing, amazing discoveries, and the scientists will become total like geniuses. It's like, because as Einstein, when somebody asked him about his genius, he said, I kept asking the questions like a child. And that's how every scientist can become like that. New forms of energy or basic essentials of nature. As you know very well, that the divine nature is very, very simple. And if a theory is complex, you know it's man-made. It can be divine. The divine aspect is always extremely simple, but it takes almost like a person to be like a genius to think in those terms. And that's exactly what Einstein was also. So you'll have some, like even the operating systems, and I have written more than 150 books. I have about 3,500 pages on my website. It's not even 1/10 of my work, and it's just because it is so tedious to put this on. And I'm very computer savvy in PHP and .NET and every system that you can think of, and yet it's so complex. Everything. It takes such a long time. It engages the brain too much, and that's exactly what's going to be eliminated in the next few years. Like the hologram, the new ones that will be coming out will be a total, not just illusion. It will be actual new natural holograms coming up. And this was my prediction quite some time ago. Now, another theme that is happening with that Neptune being the sign of Pisces, that's a spiritual era. And just remind me later on to speak about that. That's a beautiful, your energy, the way you talk, and there's a certain serenity in the spiritual aspect you have. That, to me, is exactly Neptune in Pisces. Impressionism, that's all the Piscean theme that's coming up. But there are some major events still to go, even in the month of April. And I took out these dates. One of them is around 10th of, today's what? 10th should be actually tomorrow.
Yeah, 10th tomorrow.
Yes, so Moon is in Cancer, touching off that Saturn. You see, there's this what we call cardinal square. When there are planets in Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn, these are called cardinal signs.
Okay.
And so there are many planets bunched in there. And, for example, on the 30th of April, you have Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Uranus, all of them in the sign of Aries, all of them in opposition to the Moon, to Pluto, and square to Saturn, and square to Pluto. It's like you've got almost like 5-6 T-squares in the sky, and nothing redeeming there. So these are very, very strong stresses on the Earth. And you can completely forget about astrology just by itself. Where astrology comes in is the planet in Aries, to me, is fire, is volcano. That's where the aspect is, as opposed to tsunami, before it was in Pisces. So there are certain days which are very critical are, now 10th of April is just one, 17th April is a very important one, and 23rd April and the 30th April. These are the ones in April that are very, very strong. After that, it starts slowly moving away, where all these planets bunch together, that part. And but what I find, when as I said, the divine truth is always very, very simple. Like when Saturn was in the sign of Sagittarius, long time ago, I predicted that Sagittarius was the sign of the stock market, and the stock market would be completely, there'll be a major crash. And I think it was around October 87 or so before that I'd said. But before that, because Sagittarius is also a sign of religion, I said there'll be some evangelical crisis or scandal before that will be caught. And sure enough, we had the Jim Baker thing just before that. And then Pluto was in Sagittarius, and I wrote in, I think 2002 or 3, I forget. It's on my site actually. That Pluto is more than Saturn. Like Saturn in 2017, there'll be another major crash of a stock market, but the whole market being completely redefined. That's a Pluto theme. That's once in a lifetime, once in about 246 years, and it happened around that 2008 period. And sure enough, that was the end of that phase. The beginning and the end of the phase is always the most critical we find. The beginning of that, when we had mentioned in 1995 there'll be mass communication, and the internet started exactly November 1995, and that finished in 2008. And right after 2008, I said there'll be geological revolutions, not just the boundaries being redefined, but also the whole all these tectonic plates shifting, etc. This is going to continue for the next several years, and also the emphasis on free energy, etc. These are all that Pluto and Capricorn theme. And right now what's happening, there are 3-4 themes combining together. And now the scientists are saying that the solar flares they are finding that may also be coinciding with the mass psychosis. Like all these revolutions happening and people get really angry very easily. Like Hitler had only one planet in Aries, Mercury. And here we have 6 planets in Aries coming up. So you can imagine the children are going to be very short span.
Hassan, can I stop you there for a second before we have quality information overload for the audience here? So we'll carry on talking about all this. I mean, wow, what an opening answer to a question there, or rather answer to the opening question. So what Hassan is saying, and I have seen this, ladies and gentlemen, that he talked about tsunami-related tragedy in the Japanese area. It was brought to my attention by Alexandra Bruce on her websites and videos that she shared, and then our good friend Rob McConnell over at X-Zone Radio that posted a video and it linked to that. And you can see Hassan, you can listen to Hassan rather, talking about the recent tragedy in Japan and one or two other things. And for the audience, I have read some of Hassan's predictions regarding to the stock market crash, as in 2007 and some other things, and also his words on the 2008 presidential election with relating to Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. And lo and behold, Hassan seems to be right. And I have no clue how this astrology thing works. I'm approaching this like everything else, like a child, like Hassan says, and we rely on experts like Hassan to give us the answers, so to speak. So let's move on, and we'll ask you this question. You've touched on some of the things that are coming up for the people of planet Earth here in 2011 and 2012. Just give us some highlights, Hassan, of what you think may shake down for us all.
Well, first of all, the signs of Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. The whole world is showing their states. These are called, they are sort of executive signs. They are what they call cardinal signs. They are self-oriented. It can be selfish, but it's more self-oriented when they like to get things their way. Like, for example, I consider myself more of an entrepreneur as opposed to a businessman. I couldn't care less whether money matters, but what I'm concerned about how I can make a difference in the life of the masses. That's my only goal. That's it.
Yeah.
In cardinal signs, they have 4 different ways of doing things. They like to get things their way. So all these planets, so these signs, there's a major 7-year cycle for these signs, by the way, just as a personal level, regardless of what other planets they have in that chart. And while people are going through this testing phase, they always have struggles and delays, so they have throughout this year to decide what they want to do for the next 7 years. This is just on the side that I was saying. There are some very positive things also happening, which is from this June till next June exactly, the real estate market is going to really boom. I was right about this in 88, and I said till May 89, and it finished exactly May 89. The same thing is happening the first week of June of 2011 till the first week of June, till the second week of June of 2012. And that's it. And you will see the boom, real estate, land, older property. This is a very, very strong aspect. Unfortunately, we'll probably have a lot of mining accidents around that time because of that Jupiter being in Taurus also. We often find that. And also some major historical monuments uncovered. It's an absolute boom for history, actually, at that time. Yeah. Now, these dates that I gave in April, so after April, by the way, the first week of April was a very dangerous aspect, and the other one is around 30th of April. Once that is gone, I'll be much, much happier, because it's a scary configuration. I've never seen this configuration in my life before, ever.
Ooh, oh dear.
And the last time it was in Tunguska, in Russia, which wiped off about 2,500 square kilometers of their forest in Tunguska in Russia. In Siberia, the same type of thing that happened, except this time it's much longer. Some major aspect of something is brewing, and I don't think it's HARP or anything of that nature at all. It's just natural geological aspects happening, actually. Yeah, and it has to do with the fire, that's why the volcanoes, etc. And that whole California, the Vancouver, is not completely over yet, but after about April, it will be. Unfortunately, I've done 246 projects with my own money in the last 5 years for research and all kinds of things, from autism to Down syndrome to earthquakes. Like, one man can only do so much, even though I have a lot of the programmers all around the world. But I'm hoping very soon to get a whole lot of people involved in that, in some of these things. And as the computers are becoming faster, because they're still a bit slow for me, at least one weekend, so they're catching up to our way of thinking, actually. Another thing on this side, I'd like to say that if you really want to see what your mission is in life, then whenever a person is born, if you just check the headlines on that day, it'll tell you, every one of those headlines on that day when you were born will tell you something about your mission in life.
Really?
Absolutely. It's such an easy aspect,
Wow. I've never heard of that before, Hassan.
I know. I went to the library, and I was born in December, actually, and I went to a library, just checked a newspaper. And I checked this newspaper. On the front page, there was just one picture. It seemed to be sort of a Middle Eastern person who was wearing a sort of a crown on his head, a book in his hand, and was pointing to the sky. And of course, we have no blasphemous aspect in our faith, that we are just mere mortal. We cannot even create a dust particle. But it was a picture of Jesus Christ, and it was maybe because around Christmas or something, and it only had one heading: the King who nobody wanted. And I didn't even have to look at the rest of it. I said, my God, I want to preach every religion, the truth is in every religion, and the only thing which will allow me that is astrology. No religion will allow me to only preach the truth in that religion, to preach the truth of other religions. So, but astrology, I can preach to everybody. So here I can combine the truth of every religion, from Christianity to Hinduism to Islam to Torah to Judaism. Everything I can combine in my astrology.
Wow, Hassan, that is a very, if I may stop you there, that's a very profound statement you made there, and that you can talk and teach about the world's religions, everything, through astrology. I've never heard that before. I mean, that's great.
Yes,
that is great.
And, but it also said the king who nobody wanted. I don't even belong to an astrological guild. Maybe I'm a really good one who doesn't belong to a guild.
So a world expert.
I love Jesus.
That's hilarious.
I love the Jesus energy, by the way. When I think of pure love, I think of Jesus, actually, Like he's considered a Messiah, actually, for us, actually, as you know. But this is, I think, I really feel that this is very important when you because if I'm being able to make such fantastic predictions and it's nothing to do with me, I'm just a damn good interpreter. It's that master plan which is so fantastic. And it's a very, very, very simple answer to that I found out. I've been thinking about it for almost the last 30 years, but now I found exactly, it's confirmed me now with all the solar flares, and the scientists are confirming. It's only the relationship between the sun's path, the ecliptic, the apparent path of the sun, and the celestial equator. And that's it. And it starts at 21st of March. Right at 21st of March, it's a fresh energy like you have Mercury in Aries. Einstein was born with that. Shakespeare was born with that. Leonardo da Vinci was born with that. It gives ability to think in this basic essential. You can take the most complex theory and reduce it to its basic essential, immediately get to the bottom of it, rather than the long, drawn type of thing. That's an Aries theme. It's like a pioneer, that side note. When just 30 degrees before that, when the moon is in Pisces, for example, we often find all these ocean-related things. And I should have really made this report a long time ago. You remember my book, Moon Magic? I printed about 10 of them, 10 different series. And then I said, everybody should be able to have this. So I made a new report. It's only like $19.95, same thing as a book, which is my Moon Magic book. And that one, so the report itself is based on that, based on the date and time and place of birth, and it gives two things: all the world events that are happening, as well as your own in your own chart where the moon is on any day. Whenever it's in 8th house, you always get money. Whenever it's in the 12th house, you always feel run down. There is no exception. And so such a simple report I've made.
That's crazy.
And you can actually test it. Every 28, 29 days, the cycle repeats itself. And you will see, every time moon goes into Pisces, you'll see the rainy weather, the misty weather, the cloudy, and the ocean. And you hear about storms in the Gulf. As soon as it goes in Aries, it's drifted away somewhere else. It is beyond, perception. I wrote that in 86 October. And sure enough, every time it's the same thing. Like Titanic, same thing, moon in Pisces. Even the violins, that's a Piscean instrument. All these people playing the violin while they were sinking, this sense of sacrifice. That's all the Piscean theme. So it's so amazing, how these things work.
Well, for the listener, there's an image of one of Hassan's Moon Report books. It's on the main page of the Universal Learning Series website and will be on the archive page as well. You click on the book image, and it takes you to Hassan's website, and you can contact Hassan about getting your own personal chart, one-year chart, as well as world themes too. It's rather cool, fun, and bizarrely enough, it seems to be accurate. So I did one of these myself a few years ago when I first met Hassan, and it is what it is. I can't explain it, but he's right. So,
and it's so simple, you know. I would love to get, but this is the first time I think, because there's no report like this available anywhere in the world.
No, there's not.
Yeah, so, and it's so simple, you know. It's and that's why I said the divine aspect. And now that the computers are becoming faster, and we've done a lot of work in the last few years, and now we'd be able to actually put it all together, and it'd be absolutely amazing. And it has to do with the solar thing for sure. It's the induced field, the magnetic field of the Earth that's coming up. You know, the magnetic field of the Earth along with the rest of the planets. And while they're cutting it at different angles, etc., it's completely...
Okay, Hassan, I want to ask you a couple of questions here.
I'm so sorry, my daughters were here.
That's okay. That's okay. We're all live on air. We're all human. That's all right.
While you're talking,
that's okay. We all like to multitask in the world. Now, let me ask you a series of questions that I'm sure the audience wants to know. If you could give us brief responses to this. All right, 2012, December. Is anything going to happen?
No, I don't see it at all.
Okay.
Saturn is going into Scorpio, so a lot of doomsday prophets would be there, but their prophecy wouldn't come true. But it is interesting that the whole ecliptic part going through the galactic center, it is a phenomena that happens where, you know, which is once in a, I mean, every 22 or 25,000 years, it does cross aspect, and within that, I believe every 7,000 years or so, I mean, the Mayans were correct in that aspect. But I've always been fascinated, you know, the Mayan people themselves. Well, like they were feeding off the jungle and berries and all that. So there was some other race there. The same people who also did something with Egypt, like the same pyramids, the same height of the thing, and all that is very, very similar. Because these people had, you know, in one sense, like the ephemeris that they made for Venus, that's like one day off in 6,000 years. And there was no need for them to have these millions of miles type calculations at all. There's some other aspect, but that's really amazing. But what's happening is, this is the other part. After this April, you know, there's one thing which I wrote, in I believe in December also, and before this last year in 2010, that the events that are happening in April, March, is going to be extremely spiritual also. Besides these tsunamis that I've said, there's going to be some, sort of prayer and people being very humanitarian, all the musicians and all, opening their heart. I just hope that it's all voluntarily, as opposed to some major catastrophe happening around the world. And I could actually just see this whole thing that is happening. I was so upset that I wish I could get the whole world involved, the scientists involved, the geophysicists involved, that we could do something with this aspect. But you know, which is true. Like with all these planets and Pisces, the humanitarian aspect was there, and still continuing to some extent, of course.
Hassan, what do you foresee, what do the stars tell you, rather, for the world economy in the next 1 to 3 years, if anything?
You know, this month of April, of course, is very, very, you know, when people play on people's fears and all that, and very impulsive action with all these 6 planets in Aries till 30th of April. From May, it become much more stable. But till that time, the violence, the wars, like all these themes are very, very strong. And people are led into action, you know, by these unscrupulous leaders, actually, unfortunately, you know, that part. But there's one thing which is happening which is extremely beautiful, by the way, which just happened for about last week or so, which is Neptune moving in the sign of Pisces. And this was in the sign of Aquarius, which combined the electronics, the digital technology and the video and the analog technology. Now it's in the sign of Pisces. This is that, you know, that Jesus energy that we talk about, and the symbol of faith, you know, that's all that Neptune and Pisces. Impressionism is an extremely, extremely inspirational era coming up. But the analog aspect also, not just digital, where the film, the digital film becomes like the 35 millimeter, and the sensual experiences, the whole senses become involved. It's such an aspect of prayers, of true spirituality rather than a dogmatic religion aspect. That's all that Piscean theme that's coming up. But it's absolutely fantastic. You will see the true miracles of nature coming up. By the way, the thing which I want to tell you about that birds, birds having, this, there was this lady, some Dr. Sandra or something, a scientist, environmental scientist, something. She wrote something very wrong, I felt, that she was talking about all these birds falling from the sky and the fish, for example, millions of them, because it happened 3 days before the tsunami earthquake. It was a major warning there. There's something happening in Pacific, which is throwing all these on one side. Anyways, about the birds, she was saying, this can be a natural phenomena. They can just be spooked and all that. A scientific saying like this. So I wrote an article, comment on that the beaks have this magnetite receptors in their beak. These are iron particles. They can detect the north and south pole as right in flight. They can detect the subtle changes in the geomagnetism.
Really?
Can you imagine what an amazing creator, like what he has done here? The whole path. We don't have to see it all. They have the eyes closed and they're going purely by the geomagnetism. And that's exactly how we operate. Base of blood is hematine, which is iron. Like we generate electrical pulses ourselves from our brain and whole nervous system. And that's exactly what it is. So it's purely the geomagnetism, which is constantly changing relative to the planets. And the whole induced field of the Earth. Earth doesn't have its own magnetic field. It's all induced by the sun. So I'm sure the scientists will find that very soon. I've been trying to keep a low profile because I do not really want to have all kinds of controversy right now until I found all the answers. As far as astrology, does it work or not? I'm developing a program right now where you'll have 100 parents and one child. My software, in less than 30 seconds, will tell you that child belongs to which parent and what specific traits has that child inherited from which parent. There is nothing in medicine or anything like this at all. In genetics, there's nothing like this which can do that. That will conclusively prove whether it works or not.
Wow. Okay, Hassan, next question for you. Do the stars foretell a greater peace and calm and diplomatic relations between all nations and peoples of Earth?
I definitely see that, and the driving force will be the musicians, the creative film people. As Neptune is going to Pisces, it's an era of spirituality and music and the highest form of creativity. That's exactly just started, actually. Normally it starts with some major traumas and all that. Unfortunately, I don't think we have witnessed the end of that yet. So I do feel in the next few weeks we still have a major aspects of all these earthquakes and all that. I hope nothing happens, but something is making everybody very spiritual. I wish it could be just voluntary, but it's hard to hope that millions of people suddenly become spiritual. So, but it is coming to that area for sure. The only way we can offer the theme is by doing it spirituality, by spiritually, and of course people like yourself are contributing to that for sure. Okay.
Hassan, the next question I have for you: do the stars foretell an era where where we as a species, human beings, will eliminate hunger and starvation and disease for the poor folks out there?
It's difficult to see such a thing, because I knew that the world is not going to end by the fact that the same 6 planets in Aries are touching off like 6 grand trines in my chart. So for some people, it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Our knowledge and thinking, if there was some bad configuration, there should be bad for everybody, and that's going to be long way. I can't even see that how it would be like that. By the way, it's not the constellations in Indian astrology. The original Indian astrologers were correct, but the modern astrologers, in India, they go by the constellations, and it's nothing to do with constellations, period. And it's purely the sun and the earth, this aspect, and they say, the Western people take the earthly, mundane things, and we go by the soul. It's total nonsense. The constellations are not equidistant at all. These nakshatras, they have all equidistant exactly. And I told them some constellations are 15 minutes, some constellations are 45 minutes. How do you take equidistant then? It's only the beginning part, which is the 21st March. So that's the only thing which is different. And, the 21st March is purely the distance of the sun's path and the earth's path, where that oblique to the ecliptic, that's all that determines the entire thing. It's such an easy, and it affects the geomagnetism, just like it affects all these birds, and they're able to see. We have exactly the same thing. We are much more evolved than the birds. And at some point they will find maybe whether they are those magnetite receptors like in the beaks of the birds,
Right.
something else in Hamilton, for example, that I'm sure they'll find it very soon. But the new inventions that are happening just about from this week onwards are absolutely going to be incredible. They'll revolutionize everything and make it much, much more simpler. Just like Wright brothers, the first time when they took the flight, Uranus was in Aries. Now, 84 years after, it's come back to the same placement.
Ooh. Well, that's a really interesting thing you say about the birds, because they have to know which way to go.
Absolutely.
Right?
But the thing, and the reason they fell down probably because the whole, all the magnetic poles slightly shifting, for example, like there've been changes in that very strong. Now, it does coincide with the 11-year cycle of the sun, but it's more than that, not just that cycle. That's just like a Jupiter aspect. But the other planets is constantly being, as the geomagnetism is changing, it's really confusing these birds, and it must be affecting them very strongly. That's one of the major navigation systems for them. But what we need to do is we need to become very vigilant about small things. A lot of animals dying or millions of fish suddenly going on the shore, for example. They're not confused or anything. Some forces are throwing them off, or the sulfur being coming out of the earth or whatever. For example, it's we really have to become aware more of nature, what's going on.
Hassan, I have an oddball question for you. Does your work in astrology and your research in general, do you touch on alien life forms at all?
I'm 100% positive that there are many species all around the world. I'm sure the entire nature was not just created for the Earth. I mean, I do believe that the human beings are the most evolved of the species, of course. And so the entire galaxies and everything, like we are the main reason, I think, a lot that God created all of those things, but we can be just a little Earth. So I'm sure there are other systems just like us, and you do get these flashes from time to time, and whether they're parallel universes, whatever, for example. But I am sure that we will find some answers of that, and that is going to happen in the next 7 years probably, with this very fast ways of travel and very simple ways of manipulating, whether it's a time warp, whatever. You'll find all those answers. The physics is going to go through a major revolution in these 7 years, especially starting from now.
Well, when you used to watch the science TV shows 5-6 years ago, the notion of time travel, more warping space and closing the distances between planetary systems was more science fiction, pie in the sky. They used to talk about it, but there really wasn't solutions. Now, when you watch all the research stuff on TV and on the internet, there's a lot more serious discussion about that. I mean, obviously they haven't done it yet, but man will never fly. Remember that one? So
yes.
Yeah, the Earth is flat, and if you say otherwise, we'll burn you to the stake and kill you. Yeah, remember all that stuff? So
in Canada, the TD Waterhouse, they have this stock thing. They issued an advisory to ignore my predictions, about the tsunami, etc. But they made the mistake of putting the first paragraph right there, that astrologer Hassan Jaffer predicted this thing in 2008. So I got a lot of emails from a lot of different people. They said, "Wow, you already predicted this aspect. How can these people say they're admitting almost that you did it, then they want us to ignore it? He was expecting a star." I said, "I better not create a panic."
Yeah. Don't listen to Hassan, please. Don't listen to him. He may be right. Well,
I'm so lucky, that we feel that that we cannot even create a dust particle. Like many of these people who have totally egocentric time, my God, when they sense any answer of power, that's tremendous power. They could misuse it so badly,
Mm-hmm.
I'm lucky that I'm extremely humble and very deeply spiritual in the Shastra and recognize that, as I said, we cannot even create dust particle. And I tell people who feel that God is within them, I tell them, I said, go to Sahara Desert for 2 days and you'll find out how much part of God you are. Because to me, God is beside every particle without being part of it. It's a very important distinction. There's a creator and a created.
Yeah. Well, if you do your research and you find how the solar system came into being, I mean, it literally is dust and gas. I mean,
yes.
It is.
Yeah.
It is what it is, and we're all from that. I mean, even Moby wrote a song, "We Are All Made of Stars." I don't know if you've heard of it. The artist Moby. So,
oh, yes,
there you go. Okay. Hassan, can you leave the folks here today with a couple of tips in relation to astrology for their benefit, what they can look at, maybe research for their own good?
My moon transits, that report, I have the 12-month forecast, but the moon transits report, I think is one of the best. It's such an amazing one because they can also see what the world is going through. Like every time moon is in Scorpio, as if nature is trying to remind us of life and death situations and our own mission in life. Trudeau, his funeral, moon in Scorpio. Princess Diana, moon in Scorpio. Hafiz Assad, moon in Scorpio. King Hussein, moon in Scorpio. JFK Jr., moon in Scorpio. It's so amazing. It's beyond chance. Like after Diana, for example, 2 days later or a few days later after her funeral, Mother Teresa passed away. Moon was in Sagittarius. It wasn't like a shock. It was a deep sense of reverence. Totally different type of a feeling all around the world. And that's what happens when moon is in Pisces. I've been able to close my eyes, play the piano a little bit, and say, today the moon is in Pisces. It's an acute, painful sensitivity that I have with nature, that I can say where the moon is and all that. I'm not willing to teach it to anybody because people will kill themselves. You've got to be extremely talented and do something with it. They'll blame the whole world and their husbands and the wives for all their problems and all that, But I'm an artist. I'm a musician, a black belt in Taekwondo, and I'm an engineer. So all these talents, I'm able to put it to good use. And I have to, you need inspirational sadness to write something, where you're coming close to truth. You need some denial in life. And I almost have to recreate the sad moments to inspire myself. But it's not self-pity, it's compassion for other people.
Yeah.
But now I'm almost really concerned of my ability to understand at a natural level. There's something which I said in 2004 about Uranus being the last degree, and it was the last degree on the 11th of March, not even a day later. On the 11th, it was in Pisces. On 12th, it went into Aries. One day it was a huge tsunami, the other day was the explosion of the nuclear reactor. I mean, so destined. I can't believe how nature's plan could be so simple. Yeah. And it's almost scary that it's so simple, but to think like that, it's like a Mac as opposed to PC. It's a different mindset. That's why I tell people to be completely cross-platform. Try to do some Mac also. Like if you're doing a program on the Mac, for example, you'll feel so frustrated because there's not a single menu there till you move the mouse. As you move the mouse, suddenly the menu shows up. And you realize, why did I think of it before?
Yeah, why didn't I think of it? It's right there. Yeah.
It just engages the mind so differently in this aspect.
Oh,
and
good.
That is, yeah. So very soon, I think we'll start having all kinds of different answers now. But we're coming to a beautiful, beautiful era. But what I would suggest for the people now, to start, people are going to become much more security-minded. So owning the land, owning that stability, going back to roots, going to an old church or an old place of worship which brings the beggar and the king together. All that is going to start from first week of June. That's where the real estate, the land, the property boom is also there, but also going back to roots, the culture, that part is going to become very strong.
Excellent stuff, Hassan. For those listeners, please visit Hassan Jaffer's website, astrotrends.net. That's astrotrends.net. The link is on the main page of the Universal Learning Series website. And we've linked the video that our good friend Rob McConnell put on the internet that talked about, it contains the audio of Hassan talking about the tragedy in Japan as well. So you can look at that too. And as I said, you click on the Moon Transit report, and that takes you also to Hassan's website, and you can contact him for your own personal chart. Hassan, thank you very much for coming onto the show today and sharing wonderful information that we're going to sit and think about for 3 hours as usual. And
thank you very much, Sandy. It's always fun to be with you. You ask such intelligent questions. Thank you very much. You're doing a great service. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you, Hassan. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
That was Hassan Jaffer, astrologer. His website, again, astrotrends.net. That'll do us for this edition of the show. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.